feel free.
All right, well, we'll get going then. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us on Friday afternoon. My name is Aris Hovasapian. I'm the Utility Program Manager for Los Angeles Community College District. That means I support and advise the colleges on our 9 community colleges on all issues related to utilities and energy, and now getting to sustainability matters as well. So this is kind of a rough outline of what we're going to talk about in these presentations between me and Hakeem Chambers. And Hakeem will introduce himself a little later on. The key item that we're going to address is the resolution on clean energy and sustainability that we passed recently, but I also wanted to give some context and background on the other work that LACCD has performed on sustainability historically. So 9 community colleges, as I mentioned, City, East Harbor, Mission Pier Southwest, Trade Tech, Valley, and West LA. We cover 882 square miles. We have over 230,000 students in our system, and there are 40 cities within the district's boundaries. And the little red logos are where the colleges are located specifically. So 9 colleges, as I mentioned, 1 district office, 3 additional properties. We have 2 electric utilities, 5 water agencies, 1 natural gas utility, that's SoCal Gas, as you can imagine, and 3 energy supply, third-party energy suppliers. We have over 150 buildings, 7.5 million square feet of conditioned space. We've authorized, the voters have authorized over $9.6 billion in bond dollars for capital construction. That's generally new construction and major renovation projects over since starting in 2001. Annually, we're up to over $13 million of energy spend. That's electricity and natural gas being energy. And we've installed 10.6 megawatts of solar PV, and we're probably going to be doing a little bit more in the next few years. So in 2002, LACCD passed a sustainability policy, or the LACCD Board of Trustees passed its sustainability policy requiring LEED certification on all new buildings, exceeding Title 24 by 20%, and renewable energy to account for 15% of the needs of each new construction project. So we've been a leader in sustainable design and construction on the Capitol building side since then. Part of that included installing the installation of central plants and solar PVs earlier than most public agencies, starting in 2007, I believe, which is before my time with the district. We also developed the sustainability design standards with recent updates in 2016 and 2019. There's 40 mandatory sustainability features addressing several categories: stormwater, heat island effect, light pollution reduction, water efficient landscape, energy performance, materials and resources, IAQ, among other categories. So we have a pretty good history, documented history of investing in sustainability and being an early adopter in sustainability. We also have a pretty aggressive pursuit of LEED certifications, including 4 platinum buildings, 24 gold, 16 silver, and 9 certifications, and additionally 17 projects that are on track, that have not yet completed or not yet been certified, but on track to earn some degree of certification. So here's a bit of a breakdown by college of the LEED certifications earned historically at LACCD. And in terms of electricity, this is 8 years of electricity trends. As you can see, increasing consumption and cost up until the last year for which we're providing data. The 19-20 fiscal year is going to be obviously impacted by COVID, so we'd expect that drop to continue. But we're fully aware that there's a bit of an artificial drop for that to continue into 19-20. on electricity trends. The value we generated from our solar PV assets is trending around $1.5 million worth of electricity that we're getting from on-site solar generation. So this is money that we would have otherwise spent on grid purchase electricity that we are generating the electricity from on-site assets, the 10.6 megawatts that I mentioned earlier. So general trends, I've already spoken about that a little bit on the first two lines here. The key thing with that increasing line that you saw earlier, we've added about 500,000 square feet in that time period. So it's not unexpected that with the additional square footage that we've brought online, we would end up paying more for energy to provide cooling, heating, lighting to those additional square feet. And we also obviously face electric rate increases year over year. Which means that even if we kept our consumption static, we would still pay more year over year. So any drop in consumption may not necessarily mean an equivalent drop. Will not mean an equivalent drop in cost on electricity. And then obviously the COVID-19 issue, we've tracked some significant reductions in energy use, trending somewhere around 35 to 40% drop in electricity when I've compared specific months in 2020 versus 2019. So April through July 2020 versus the same period in 2019, we've dropped 35 to 40% energy use as a result of COVID, which means our facilities are mostly vacated during that time. The measurement and demand response project was a big accomplishment for the district that completed in 2015 and installed electric submeters at all buildings over 10,000 square feet and some additional monitoring at our central plants. It allows us to see what's going on at buildings almost in real time, whereas before we would just be relying on the utility bill every month to see if there's been a spike or an increase in cost. It's allowed us to participate in the demand response pilot that DWP offered in 2015 that has now become an annual program. So we've been in that program since day one, and we've earned over $160,000 through that program. And we've increased our earnings every single year that we've participated in that. And then on the Edison side, we 3 of our colleges are with Edison. We've tried to participate in their demand response programs as well. But they've been a little more challenging. They change a lot, and recently those events have been called for the window from 4 to 9 p.m., which are hours that building operators are not on staff. Are not on site. So colleges are just not comfortable participating in those events if there's nobody on site to troubleshoot any issues that may come up. So we do have a dashboard and some daily reports that I'm going to show you some samples of in the next couple of pages, which will include some comparisons pre-COVID to during COVID. And you can see those impacts pretty clearly on the graphs. So we have a daily report at 5 a.m. For each college that shows what's going on, what's happened at that college's buildings for the past 24 hours. And then they have a monthly heat map that shows what's going on, what's happened at the college for the previous month. And we have access to all the data. We own the data, even though it's hosted on a cloud service. We made sure that we write in that we own the data ultimately. And this data has been shared dozens of times with with third parties to generate forecasts and savings estimates. And improve their planning activities on energy impacting projects. So here's a sample daily report of Wednesday, August 7th from Los Angeles Trade Technical College. And Trade Tech would have been the host of this event had this happened physically, the MGBCE for this year. So unfortunately, we're not on site, but hopefully the next year we'll have some improvements in the situation that will allow us to get together at Trade Tech. So what I would note for you to look at is the axes over here. So the y-axis over here is getting up to 5,000 kilowatt hours for the F and the ST buildings here. And the 24-hour KW graph over here, you see they're floating somewhere around 300 KW for most of the day, with really good startups and really good shutdowns at the prescribed hours. So again, key item here is 5,000 kWh and 300 kW on this bottom graph. Now, if we look at it for the COVID adjusted, or for the COVID impacted time period, which is a Wednesday again in early August, Wednesday, August 5th. Now we're floating at 2,000 kilowatt hours here for some of these buildings, and some have gone offline for various reasons. And very little activity. You can see some equipment cycling here, obviously, but you don't have that startup from 5 a.m. at 300 kW going all the way to 10, 11 p.m. and then shutting off. So major change in what's going on at the campus for a Wednesday during COVID versus a Wednesday at the same time of year pre-COVID. And then we'll look at the heat map report. This is a monthly report, again, for what's now designated the B1 building, but also called Oak Hall. So, we peaked at, the peak here that's recorded is 500 kW for this building. And you can see, very consistent 5-day startup and shutdown, starting up during this hour, shutting down during the 8 p.m. hour. And Fridays are kind of a lighter day, generally speaking. And you can see where the July 4th holiday is over here. No activity during July 4th. That looks really good. And then if we look at the COVID impacted month of July, it's a little more sporadic. There's still some startups and shutdowns, but not peaking more than 300 kW during COVID, and much lower energy use. So this validates that our campuses or our colleges and the facility staff at the colleges are doing a really good job in responding to COVID. Pre-COVID, we would use the same type of graphics these same types of graphics to make recommendations or validate that their practices are proper, or make recommendations to find efficiencies. And we've continued to do that even during COVID, but these are some of the resources available to us. And then demand response results, as I mentioned before with LADWP, we've increased our revenue from that opportunity every year, with $44,000 from the summer 2019 demand response season being the highest that we've performed. I'm not sure how 2020 is going to go. We've had some interesting events with demand response during this week, during the heat wave. So we'll see how that goes. If I'm not sure we can continue the trend of increasing to this degree, but I'm hopeful. And then we did a lot of energy efficiency projects through the Prop 39 program that was state funding for energy efficiency. We delivered 51 projects and through spending roughly $17 million overall. We ended up focusing a lot on lighting projects, even though we did some other categories early in this program. It was a 5-year program that closed about a year ago. So we delivered a lot of lighting projects through that program, focusing mostly on exterior areas, but getting into some building interiors as well. So we've converted a lot of our parking structures, roadways, arcades, walkways to LED already. In some cases, we're 98, 99% LED at Valley College, at Pierce College, and a couple of other colleges on the exteriors at least. The interiors we still have a good ways to go. And then this is just the amount of spending that we had through the Prop 39 opportunity for the 5-year program. And then in terms of savings, we forecast savings, cumulative savings of 6.5 million kilowatt hours and 98,000 therms through the Prop 39 program, which totals approximately, just under $1 million of overall savings. We are unable to validate that at this point because COVID-19 basically impacted that. So we'd have to make some forecasting adjustments to say if we were going to hit that number. Since the program closed at the end of, the last project that we installed was at the end of the 2019 fiscal year. And the verification period, the last third of the verification period to validate this number of $979,000 was impacted by COVID. So we'd have to make some adjustments to affirm that we did end up saving those numbers. So this is the forecasted amount, which amounts to roughly 7.5% reduction in overall energy spending. So additional opportunities that we've taken advantage of. We've worked with a third party to host fellowships within our office. They've both been assigned to LA City College. One is currently, there's a current fellow, Climate Corps fellow at City College through the end of this calendar year. We've hosted student interns for roughly the last year or so, currently on the third term hosting an intern. And then the student intern is from one of our 9 colleges. That's the program, that's the internship program that it recruits from the 9 colleges of LACCD. We're developing a pilot project with LADWP and the gas companies for some energy audit support. We just got the first report for that about a couple weeks ago that we're hoping to turn into a project with a payback of under 3 years based on the audit findings. We're looking at other energy-related revenue opportunities, the 179D tax credit, bill auditing services, and others. We enrolled in the USGBCLA's Net Zero Accelerator last year and hope to be selected again for the same program this year. And we're working internally on developing a green revolving fund to support sustainability and energy programs and initiatives. That would be a fund where we take savings from projects and reinvest them into additional projects and opportunities. So having said all that, and I know it was a lot, what's next is we wanted to make sure that we're doing our part on the climate crisis. And as everybody knows here, emissions are the enemy, I guess, and it's incumbent on all of us to try to reduce our emissions as much as possible. And we know that they're mostly tied to transportation and energy globally, and California's done a lot in this field within the United States, at least, on reducing carbon emissions with AB 32 and then with SB 100 in 2018. And as you saw from some of the other presentations today, the county, the city, Metro, the UC system, the Cal State system, and LA Unified have all set clean energy goals with other goals on sustainability. And as such, we proposed to our leadership that that LACCD needs to also do something. And the do something was that our Board of Trustees ended up passing the resolution on clean energy and sustainability in July of this year. So very, very recent. In fact, if any of the attendees here also attended the awards ceremony at 11:30, we had our Board of Trustees President and Vice President accept the Municipal Innovation Award from USGBCLA. So thank you very much for that recognition. And so the main objective for this resolution is that we would be 100% carbon free by 2040, 100% renewable electricity by 2030, replace 75% of fossil fuel equipment with electric substitutes by 2030, and the balance by 2040. And then additional goals on some other categories, additional curriculum and technical training opportunities, and to develop a plan on achieving the 2040 goal. So on the curriculum and technical training side, we already have a few items in flight over there. And we would continue and enhance those offerings and add some more opportunities for that. We would collaborate with labor partners on those, and that's already started in some fashion. And a couple of years ago, West LA College already established an AA program, associate's degree program for climate change and sustainability. And that actually happened completely independent of any work on this resolution, but we're happy to collaborate and coordinate with that program as well. So here's a little blurb about that program, launched in 2018. We also have trades programs at Trade Tech on electrical construction and maintenance. We have the Clean Tech automotive program at Pierce College that's looking at alternative fuel vehicles and training the workforce to maintain and repair those types of vehicles. And they're going to be getting a new construction building in a couple of years to support that program. We have the Advanced Transportation and Manufacturing Pathway at Trade Tech again. And we have also the Sustainable Environment Institute, which is a committee of our academic senate that includes faculty that teach environmental programs and sustainability coursework. And then we also have a stakeholder process that's written into the resolution that includes representation from all the colleges, representation from faculty, staff, and students, and representation from partner agencies, utilities, advocacy organizations, and other interested parties. And we were planning to present the full plan back to our Board of Trustees within 12 months. So just a little more detail on this resolution, and you know, it is a major accomplishment for us to take these bold steps forward. So we want to be 100% carbon free by 2040, renewable energy and zero carbon emissions from LACCD colleges. That includes again replacing 75% of fossil fuel equipment by 2030, and the balance by 2040. When we're talking about boilers, water heaters, landscape maintenance tools, vehicles, emergency generators, etc. 100% renewable electricity by 2030. So we think that this is pretty this is fairly practical because we wrote in that it would be in combination of on-site generation and opting up to renewable rate options as they become available from our utility partners. Also, we would engage on energy efficiency projects to reduce the amount of electricity that we would then need to replace with renewable electricity rather than just regular grid purchase electricity. We have some goals on transportation and zero waste. We want to reduce our waste streams, eliminate single-use plastics, do some landfill diversion. We've already installed some hydration stations, which unfortunately we've had to take offline with the COVID situation. And obviously that's had some impacts on some of the practices that we've engaged on. On transportation, we want to invest in alternative transportation options, discourage the use of single occupant vehicles, specifically single occupant internal combustion engine vehicles. And one of the big challenges that we have in front of us that we're excited about as well is that we wrote in that we would provide electric vehicle charging at 25% of all parking stalls. So 1 out of every 4 parking stalls at our colleges would have EV charging infrastructure behind it. This all includes a $75 million investment to start this work. So the $75 million is going to be dedicated to construction activities, energy efficiency projects, renewables, and you know, the planning process. And you know, my guess is we're probably going to end up needing more at some point, but this is a really big marker to set to start this work. So as I mentioned before, we're going to do a green revolving fund as well. There's $75 million to achieve the goals and targets. And we are, with this commitment, we will be leading the way in the California community college system As an aside, there is a push system-wide to do more and be better on sustainability at other community college districts across the state. And we wanted to take a leadership role on that work as the largest community college district. So that's the end of my portion of the presentation, and I'm welcoming any questions at this point. I'll stop to share for a second. Kate, do we have any questions that we want to address right now?
Yeah, sure. There have been some that's coming into the chat, so I'll just read them out for you if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Okay, cool. So one of them says, great job on solar adoption and reducing energy needs. Any efforts to install solar and storage projects to help further offset energy costs and support resiliency?
Yes, absolutely. Good question. Yeah, I didn't really get too detailed on that. It is actually written into the language of the resolution that we would pursue microgrid studies. We would pursue solar and energy storage systems. It's not anything more specific than energy storage systems, so we didn't want to necessarily be tied to specific energy storage technology, even though it's most likely going to be lithium-ion based storage at our facilities. So yeah, that's definitely hard-coded into the resolution that we would pursue all of, it's going to be an all of the above type of strategy where we're going to look at every technology that's practical or mature enough to be deployed. It's become pretty clear this week, especially, that storage has to be included in any sort of renewable deployment, whether it's on the customer side or on the supply side, on the utility side. The reason that we're facing these rotating outages from 3 to 10 p.m., specifically 5 to 8 p.m., is because we've brought online all of this solar, but not adequate storage to kind of get us to float through that critical time period of when the solar generation is waning on the supply side. So I think that answers the question, hopefully. Is there anything else?
Great. So one more question is, any plans for microgrids?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we just advertised a microgrid RFP for one of our colleges. It might still be up. I'm not sure if it's
it's still up.
Still up?
It's still up. It's Hakeem. Yeah, it's still up.
Yeah, thanks, Hakeem. We do have a plan to start installing some microgrids, but we're going to be very deliberate about it. The RFP that I'm talking about is for a study, essentially a feasibility and practicality study at one of our colleges. Eventually, that'll expand to do the same exercise at the other colleges. We're taking some lessons learned from the first engagement, and then I'd anticipate that we'd start actually installing some equipment and doing some programming maybe in 2 to 3 years, based on how these studies go, possibly earlier. It's hard to say at this point, but it would really, there's a lot of factors that would impact that timeline.
Great. So another question is with regards to your zero waste initiatives, or Los Angeles Community College District. Just wondering, how are you facilitating reductions in single-use plastics?
So this is a bit of a tough one because I work under facilities, and the waste hauling contract that the district has or will have is technically housed in a different department. We have been trying to coordinate on that issue. It's really something for the future, as a future consideration. But we're going to have to start kind of laying the groundwork right now to make sure that we hard code some of those values into future waste hauling contract opportunities, and have those requirements. So one of the very minor details of this resolution is that we want all of our vendors to have zero emission vehicles by 2030. Okay. So that would apply to you know, deliveries, you know, any vendor, including waste hauling. So that's one of the things that we would hard code into our waste hauling engagements of the future. It's something that the zero waste strategy is something that we don't have a lot of resources invested in currently. So we're we're gonna have to start that up from scratch essentially. But I wanted to make sure that it gets written into the resolution and that we start paying proper attention to that starting now. You know, I can't fix what's happened in the past, or what's in this case not happened in the past, but that's definitely something that we're going to be looking at more closely in the near term future.
Great. So maybe just one more quick question and then we can move on to the next speaker. What sort of support came from external partners to pass the resolution, such as the City of LA or county or Climate Reality or other nonprofits?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, Climate Reality was actually a major proponent of this, and you know, we want to thank them for showing up to our public meetings and submitting public comments to our trustees, both at board meetings and committee meetings. We had some behind the scenes collaborations with other public agencies that have done similar planning activities, or including the City of LA and the County of LA. I spoke to staff at both of those agencies. I spoke to people at UCLA and some of the Cal States. So there was and some other LA Better Buildings Challenge, obviously MGBCE LA. There was you know, behind the scenes collaboration or reviews on the language of this resolution. And I also don't want to leave out LADWP. The LADWP staff also came came virtually to our board meeting to support passing of this resolution. We got some support from labor partners as well, including IBEW. So yeah, I mean, it was really great to have the external support. But what actually surprised me in addition to that was the internal support. I thought there would be some resistance to some of the more progressive elements of some of these goals, but I was very pleasantly surprised to see that everybody was, you know, on board with everything. There was like very little that was taken out or adjusted in the review process.
Great, thank you. So we can go ahead and move on to our next speaker.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hakeem Chambers. I'm the Deputy Program Director with the Build LACCD program. I have the privilege and honor to get to work closely with Aris, as well as a bunch of other professionals, to help make a change in the education sector in all Los Angeles County. If you guys can bear with me for 1 second so I can get my presentation. And now, how do you?
Hakeem, do you want me to do it?
Yeah, you want to drive?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you. As Aris is bringing up the presentation. So LACCD is made up of 9 colleges. For Los Angeles County, covers about 882 square miles approximately. So as far north as the San Fernando Valley, and as far south as San Pedro. So and any and everything in between. So over the last 16 years, the program has benefited from the residents of LA County in passing 4 bonds. The most recent was Measure CC in the amount of $3.3 billion, which is bringing for a total bond for $9.5 billion over the last 16, 17 years. So we're busy moving forward on all these projects, and we're now in an exciting phase of that, which this slide demonstrates. We have completed about 700 projects on each campus, and you can kind of see of all the 9 campuses how the funding is divided out. Some of the campuses are larger than others, as well as Aris had spoken to. Some of them are very old. So the Trade Tech campus, which I'll focus on in this presentation, was originally founded as a high school in 1925. And it became a community technical college in 1969. So it kind of shows you the age of some of the buildings. So the way the bond for the most recent bond, Measure CC, is spread across, we had a few major categories. Replacing instructional space, modernizing existing buildings, some support services, as well as operations and universal needs, security and IT, stormwater projects, some of the energy projects and sustainability projects that Aris has spoken to, as well as looking at potential real estate acquisitions if any become available to the district. So some of the buildings have really high facility condition index. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's a rating that the state of California gives each of the buildings. The average is having buildings that have a score of under 10, which means if your building was constructed in the last 10 to 20 years, depending on the materials made in the building, what it costs to maintain and care or feed of the building, your score is around 10. Some of our campuses are averaging around 40. So a lot of these buildings are old. They were probably strong in their day, but a lot of them are energy hogs, and we're looking at how we can renovate those buildings, if not, or tear them down and build them new with sustainability in mind. Next slide, please. Did I lose you guys? Did I freeze? Okay, thanks. So LA Trade Tech, as you can see the boundary on the screen, it's located just south of the 10, right in downtown. USC is not that far from it, but it's close. So it shares the boundary, and these are some of the images you can see of when the campus was constructed. So this picture was taken, I believe, in the early 60s. Most of those buildings are still standing, believe it or not. But so looking at the campus at a glance, they've received about $875 million in total funding in the last 10 years. $350 million of that is currently in construction as we speak. So let's see, where are we? We're on slide 5. So as you can see in the highlighted areas where it's kind of with the red outline, we have a few buildings that are currently in construction. We have the Culinary Arts Lab, which is the closest building you see here. That is roughly looking at substantial completion this summer. It will house one of the oldest continuing culinary and baking programs in the country, which was founded when the school was initially founded in 1925. To the right, where you have that triangle point, is the new construction technology building. That'll be the most recent and largest building constructed in the district to date. It's about 170,000 square feet. It houses one of the largest pathways on this campus, which is the construction trades. So all of the students who are learning how to build construction, whether it be plumbing, electrical, concrete, drywall, carpentry, as well as sustainability courses. There's a photovoltaic lab on the roof where they're teaching students not only how to install, but repair and troubleshoot, so to prepare folks to go out into the world so they can receive some jobs with livable wages. On the far bottom corner, we have one of the newest projects, which is that has local bond dollars as well as state matching funds, the Design Media Arts Building. This program also produces a lot of folks who are in the design industry, fashion, as well as digital design, and this new building will house that pathway. Next slide, please. It's a large presentation, so the slides probably take long to load up. And this is the picture I had mentioned earlier, and you can tell the age of the campus. We talked about the dollar amounts. So the projects to date, we kind of highlighted that on the last slide, but you can see the areas in pink are the areas that are either recently constructed or buildings that have just recently come online or are currently in construction. What you see in the yellow are some of the existing buildings, which some of those buildings were built in the 60s, some in the 50s, And some of them are scheduled to come down as part of our new construction projects. Next slide. So our active projects that I talked about earlier, in green, which is currently under construction. Orange, we have projects that are in design. And the blue one is a project that's in programming. That's our design media arts building. So it's an active campus.
Hakeem, I also wanted to point out the proximity to transit. If you can just spend a second, or do I have that?
Okay, yeah. So this campus has the fortunate opportunity of being located adjacent to two light rail lines. So we have the light rail line coming out of Long Beach, which is the line to the south, which I believe is the blue line. I know they're changing the denominations. And the other line that runs across parallel to the campus on Washington Boulevard, I believe was the yellow line. And that line goes all the way out to the East County. So it makes it ideal for this campus. If you're getting to this campus to take public transportation, you're also located not too far from some major bus lines, as well as the campus, as Aris has spoken about, will house some new electric vehicle charging stations in some of the parking structures, which we'll get to, as well as bike stations for you to lock your bikes up. There's also areas to check out bikes in front of the campus. So we're trying to make that shift, and not only in the community as well as the district, to look towards sustainability. Some of the projects we're looking at, some of our stormwater projects, for all of our open areas where we have open greenscape on the campus, to ensure that we're capturing the stormwater and treating it before it's discharged into the system, as well as some other bioinfiltration projects, so naturally passive infiltration. We're looking at hydration stations throughout the campus to provide fresh water, and hopefully this allows students to not have to touch. It's one of the charging stations. You can take your water bottle or one like this and fill it around different parts of the campus. So we're trying to do our part to reduce our carbon footprint and relying on plastics and things of that nature for the campus to get students to think about it. In terms of sustainability, the east parking structure, which was on one of the slides earlier, was the beneficiary of a photovoltaic system. It's a large system that generates a lot of electricity. So the campus, I think, is totaling their energy bills at about $753,000 per year. The new east parking structure will help to reduce that by approximately just under 100,000, as well as adding new photovoltaic systems to the new buildings that are coming online, which will hopefully help to eat into that cost to reduce the amount of money that we're spending into the system to allow us to be a little more sustainable. This is the east parking structure that I talked about, and you can see the photovoltaic panels on the top. They also double as a carport to provide shade from the sun for parking in the top level. And we have charging stations. I think the next slide is an illustration of that. On the bottom of that parking structure, we have a handful of charging stations that are always currently in use. The slide to the right that shows the metro and light rail that runs adjacent to the campus, as well as bike lanes that were newly installed as part of the revitalization of Grand Avenue, which was a joint project that we did with Metro, as well as right in front of the school where you see the large yellow letters is to let the community know that this is the campus. I'm sorry. Oh, that this is the campus and this is the adjacent to where the light rail stations that we had talked about earlier. So we're making that shift. It's going to take some time, but I think with the help of some really awesome people like Aris, as well as some other folks in our program and the BUILD program leading the charge, we're looking to shift the expectation and how folks view sustainability, and not just something you put in as an afterthought, but to include it from the very beginning. So I didn't want to ramble. So hopefully you guys were able to understand. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to throw them out. We'll be glad to answer them now. If not, we can answer them later.
Yeah, and I don't know if I was clear enough earlier, but we wanted to focus on trade tech, and actually USGBC suggested that we focus on trade tech as part of this presentation because it was meant to be the host, the physical host of this conference when it was first announced. So we wanted to give the attendees at least a little flavor of what life is like at Trade Tech, and hopefully we can get an opportunity to see it in real life in the not too distant future.
If not, you guys can drive by. It's an awesome campus. They're doing a lot of great things there. They're really providing these opportunities for our students to really understand and get hands-on as to what sustainability means and how they can actually make a living with livable wages from coming through some of those programs. So it's exciting times, and I'm proud to be part of the program.
Absolutely.
Great, so I think we have some time for questions. A couple have been coming in. So one is, should a public campus develop microgrid infrastructure so that their local communities can have access to clean energy? A carbon neutral future depends on communities sharing a microgrid.
That's a big one.
We'll let you take that one, Aris.
Yeah, I'll take it. So that's a tough one because we're really responsible for the built environment within the boundaries of our campuses, so within our properties. So it would really require some major coordination to with the city or with the municipality around that property to have any sort of like community focused microgrid deployment, and that might be something that's a bit challenging. I will say, in terms of providing support to the communities, we definitely oriented our future work to include elements of workforce development, include elements of curriculum and training to support the communities from which our students come. In the case of natural disasters or an earthquake or something like that, or more frequently now fires, our campuses do serve as evacuation locations for displaced people. If they have to flee a fire or something like that, and for example, Pierce College is one of the locations for equestrian evacuations. If people have horses or even other large animals, Pierce College, other
large animals, animal shelters.
Yeah, it's served as a shelter location, and we have that consideration very much in mind when talking about microgrids and resiliency. Is that our colleges will be serving as shelter locations to these events that are that have unfortunately become more common and will be becoming more common and more frequent in future years. So that's definitely a consideration and is one way that we plan to support those communities that we serve.
Great, so you might have just touched on this completely, but going off of that last question, what is the #1 thing that the Los Angeles Community College District is doing to protect communities through sustainability?
Yeah, so I guess I might have answered that a little bit. I think the #1 thing that we want to focus on is to understand that sustainability touches everything. There's an element of sustainability in all the different crises that we're facing: immigration, homelessness, COVID, housing issues, transportation, and there's related emissions impacts from all of those categories and all those issues. So we want to go into this with our eyes wide open and with the understanding that we have a role to play to mitigate the worst impacts of the climate crisis. We have to reduce our direct emissions from our built environment, but we also want to instill the same values in the people, in the students that pass through our halls and through our classrooms, to make sure that they understand their own personal responsibility, their family and their household and their community's responsibility to reduce carbon emissions. But it has to come from the educational center first, from the community college. So I think, you know, it's kind of a big picture aspirational answer. I understand that, but that's what we're going for.
And Reese, can I add to that? So as Reese had mentioned, so as I had said, the campuses are spread across LA County. So to provide that opportunity, to provide these institutions and provide the ability for the community as a whole, not just its students, but the outward facing community, to allow them to experience, even see some of these things firsthand so they know exactly how these systems work. Most people will see photovoltaic panels and they kind of understand how they work, but when they go through the program or come to the campus or visit the dashboard, they have a chance to really enhance that knowledge. So when they're having those chance conversations, or even when they're speaking to their children or their parents or their constituents, they can share that information that, that the district is putting out. So we're trying to be that steward in the community, provide that information.
Great, thank you. So here's another question. Mr. Chambers, you talked a lot about alternative transportation options through the district. So I was wondering how you advertise all of these options to students, if you have incentive programs, stuff like that.
So the district does have incentive programs. I think each campus, they have partnerships with Metro to where students are able to go to the different administrative offices and work with the campuses. I think they get discounted Metro passes for both light rail and bus, as well as providing them information that's emailed out to them, as well as they check, there's like a dashboard, there's text messages that go out, there's finding each and every way, because people communicate differently these days. When I was in school, you got letters in the mail. Now that information comes instant. So you're getting, if there's a power outage or something's happening or the bus line is down, you're getting that information like real time. So the campus is making sure they're being prepared to disseminate that information real time, as well as providing all the opportunities for students to look at either carpool, ride sharing, alternate transportation, whether it be bikes, charging stations, light rail that we mentioned, all of those things. So we're ensuring that we're doing our part to help that community and to allow the students to know that there are options when they want to either come to school or where they want, you know, all of those things. So we are taking those steps. And all the construction projects are looking to enhance and to support that mission.
And just to add on that, it's not just students, but faculty and staff are also offered subsidies and other incentives for alternative transportation options.
Thank you. So one more question. So in an earlier session today, the City of Los Angeles talked about partnering with local governments all around the world to learn from each other and collaborate. So similarly, does Los Angeles Community College District partner with school districts globally? I know you partner with local California school districts to collaborate and promote sustainability and energy efficiency.
Yeah, so the community college system within California would be kind of the answer to that question. So last year, the California Community College Board of Governors put out a sustainability policy in May, and myself and some of my colleagues, we got together and asked the California Community College Chancellor's Office for an opportunity to have, you know, a better stream or a better pathway to provide feedback and formulate those policies that come out for statewide consideration. And what happened was that we ended up forming a sustainability steering committee for the community college system statewide. So we had one in-person meeting in February, and then we've had several monthly Zoom meetings as a committee to address sustainability issues and formulate a policy system-wide for the community college system. So, you know, it's kind of difficult I've never imagined that we would be doing something like that on a collaborative basis globally or even nationally. It's something that we're better able to address in state just because of the way that we're oriented as a community college system. That it's very much state funded and under state control, I guess. I mean, control is not the proper word, but jurisdiction maybe. So it would be more difficult to establish cooperative relationships with entities outside of the state itself. The other thing that I do want to say is that I've done a lot of work to do outreach and collaboration with regional or local governments, such as the city, the county, Cal States, UCLA, private higher education like USC and Caltech. So I think those are probably closer to the types of practices that we have rather than institutions outside California.
Great. Well, there are no more questions coming in, so I will leave it to you to any closing remarks or anything you need to.
Yeah, I guess we're going to close it on time for this session, sounds like. No, I want to say thank you to everybody for attending and for the great questions. I'm always looking for opportunities for collaboration with other public agencies or other institutes of higher education that are going through these same steps. It's a very, very exciting time for sustainability at our institution. And I hope to present some major progress at the next version of MGBCE. Hakeem?
Again, I appreciate the opportunity, and I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day on a Friday afternoon to hang out with us and to listen to our presentations and to ask some really challenging questions. I'm sure if you guys have other questions, I'm sure there are ways that you can find ways to reach out to either Aris or myself. We take this stuff seriously. It's up to us. It's different from before because now, we actually have a platform in which we can use to look at changing the way people view our planet, the way they view how you spend your money, where you choose to spend your money, where you choose to go to school, all of these things. So we're appreciative because if we can provide the opportunity just to give somebody something, or they get to learn something new or share something with someone else, and we're doing our part. And there's so much more to do. So thanks for everyone for participating. Really appreciate it. I got a chance to wear my bow tie today. Normally, Aris, I'm sorry. I was about to everyone. I lied to you. I lied to you. I told you I wasn't going to wear it, but I did.
How long has it been since you put on a bow tie?
But thanks. We appreciate it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, everybody. Thank you, Kate, for moderating.
Keeping us in line. Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, USGBCLA, for giving us the opportunity for the panel and for the big recognition with the award earlier this afternoon. That was a very big deal for us.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Everyone have a good weekend on purpose. Stay cool. Stay safe.
Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.